It's August 23rd. It's 1974. It's a couple of weeks after Nixon resigned. John has just moved back to New York. He's not living with Yoko. He's living with May Pang, who is his assistant that he had spent a little over a year in Los Angeles with. They've got a penthouse apartment on East 52nd Street. It's a hot night. They turn off the AC and they throw the doors open. And Lennon is going over, the album cover artwork, and he sees something outside. And what he sees is something about the size of a Learjet. He says later that you could throw a brick and hit it.
Over here, up there, I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river. It wasn't a helicopter, it wasn't a balloon, and it was so near.
And it looked what, sort of round, white, luminescent, and silent?
Silent, and it looked dark, like black or gray in the middle, and had white lights, just looked like light bulbs, just going off, on, blink, 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 round the bottom, and on top was a red light.
Strange day indeed.
How did that shape the rest of John Lennon's career as a songwriter, as a musician, as a personality? Did that change him at all?
I think it did change him. Certainly, if you go by his public statements, he almost was obsessed by it. I mean, immediately after this sighting, which was in August of 1974, he told all his friends about it. He called people about it. He got in touch with the police department and with journalistic sources. And he wrote songs about it. In fact, his next album that came out after this 1974 sighting was an album called Walls and Bridges. And he even wrote on the album cover about and drew one of his little doodles about seeing the UFO. And if you remember, literally up until his death in 1980, he was working on a song that involved the lyric that said, "There's UFOs over New York, and I ain't too surprised." So, yeah, I think it changed his life. I really do.
If you see a little note on Walls and Bridges, it says, "I saw a UFO." And I was just finished doing Walls and Bridges. I'd mastered it or done the last tape of it. And I was really just relaxed and feeling good. And it was summer in New York, and I had the window open. And lo and behold, there was this thing just hovering sort of 100 yards away. But I saw it so close, it wasn't in the sky or nothing, And it was like I could have hit it with a brick if I'd thrown a stone at it. I couldn't see the colours because it was dusk. It was a good, clear summer night. The sky was very clear. And round the bottom of it were just ordinary-looking electric light bulbs, blinking off and on alternatively, like on a billboard or something. And on the top of it was a red light. And the thing I noticed was that there was no noise, and I could hear that freeway down below, all the cars going. So I realized, it's not a helicopter, then it must be a balloon. But it was so close to the rooftop that it couldn't be a balloon. So all the rational things I went through, not a helicopter, balloon. Not a balloon, it's too close to the roof. And it's maneuvering too well to be a balloon. So I just watched it, and it was there for about 5 or 10 minutes. It went off down the East River, and there it was, and that's all I've got to say about it.
He calls May Pang out. She sees it, and they were astonished by it. And according to both John and May, they spent at least 10 minutes looking at it before it sort of silently floated down and up the East River past the United Nations building and finally disappeared.
Wow. I mean, that is fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Frank, one of the things that fascinates me is that Lennon he called his friend, photographer Bob Gruen, and they had Bob call the police department, and they said, about 3 people had called in. They called Daily News. They said maybe 5 to 7 people had called in. And the thing is, I guess the newspaper decided not to write about those people because I've never been able to track down any of those witnesses. So I would simply say today, boy, if there's anybody listening whose grandmother or grandfather saw that or they're still alive, I'd like to talk to a witness who also saw what John Lennon saw.